And I'm going to ask Carolyn Graham from Rivers SOS to speak to us for a few minutes about the issue of water and our rivers and the impact of various activities on those rivers. And also to introduce us to the campaign that Rivers SOS has been running for some time. So I introduce Caroline Graham. Thanks.
It's fabulous to see so many people here tonight. So congratulations to each and every one of you for making the effort to come out. It's not the most sexy subject, is it? But it's so vitally important to our children, our future of our water supply around here, around Sydney. And it's just great that you've made the effort to come. And I want to say thank you to Ken for asking me. When Ken and I were both young things, and I was a political virgin, it was during the anti-Vietnam moratorium years, and Ken was one of the main organisers of the anti-Vietnam movement. And I have to say, I hope I don't sound smug, but we were right then, and we're right now. I mean, this tonight, Ken, is such a credit to you. Anyway, I've been asked to just talk for a few minutes tonight because Jess has given us such a marvellous rundown on the whole scene of coal seam gas. I wanted to add a few words about coal mining in the catchment. I know it's a bit off topic tonight, but it's equally important because the damage being done in the catchment is due to coal mining. Coal seam gas hasn't yet started. We've got to stop it. But we've also got to stop coal mining from expanding as it has been doing. Just a few words about Rivers SOS because you probably haven't heard of us. We've got a few brochures on the table there. It's only $10 to join and get on our chat list. We started off in 2005 with a network of 13 groups, and we now have nearly 50. But we're groups scattered all over New South Wales, so we can never have big get-togethers. The small country groups who are worried about their rivers are just too small. So what we do is go around the different regions of New South Wales and we do our business in regional meetings. And last weekend we went up to Gerry's Plains, just for example. And that's a lovely valley where 6 coal mines are surrounding it and coming towards this area. It's a shocker. The whole coal mining area, like coal seam gas, has expanded by about 50% since the year 2000. So we've got enormous expansion happening, and with royalties coming in, and so these people in Gerry's Plains, I mean, they're only a tiny community. They've started a group called Gerry's in Jeopardy, which they do have a website. But you've got handfuls of people all around New South Wales who are not getting enough support. So Rivers SOS tries to go around and meet these people and see their areas and try and help them link up with other groups. So, of course, we've started off against mining in 2005, but now, of course, we're getting into the anti-coal seam gas game as well. And that's a huge campaign. It's really caught people's imagination, like you people here tonight, in a way that coal mining on rivers just really didn't take off in a huge way, and I think it's because rivers are hard to access, people don't own them, they don't know about them, they're often in wild, inaccessible places, and so people don't have their noses rubbed in the whole issue of rivers being undermined. I personally got involved because, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Cataract River, it's a major tributary of the Nepean, and I live on top of a cliff overlooking the Cataract River just before it flows into the Nepean at a place called Douglas Park. And as far as I was concerned, I've been there for over 30 years, and it was paradise until BHP mined under the river. Longwall mining is, as you know, underground mining with huge machines that shave the coal seam, and and behind it there's just a void, and there's no ceiling. The ground behind the machines just collapses. So it causes a lot more subsidence than the old board and pillar method where you had ceilings propped up by wooden barriers. So my river, one day I was swimming in it with my son and it just was full of red slime. And I had no idea what that was. It took me some time to find out that it was because iron oxides had been released by fractured sandstone underneath the river. And not only iron oxide, but all sorts of chemicals whose names escape me, which are quite toxic. So within a few months, there were hundreds of dead fish floating in the rivers. And this was all published in something called the Cataract River Task Force report. So I'm not sort of making it up. And the river's been wrecked. It's lost 50% of its flow. And it had methane bubbling out for many years. In the beginning, it was bubbling out a place just below my house at a rate of 30 litres per second. And that was measured by CSIRO. So enormous amount of what they now call fugitive emissions going towards the greenhouse gas effects. And this is now happening just around the corner from my place now in the Nepean River. And you might have seen it on Channel 7 a few months ago. The gas is bubbling away out of the river. That's because the longwall mining has fractured the bedrock under the riverbed. And of course, as soon as the gas stops, the water is going to go down the cracks. I mean, Blind Freddie can work that out. So all these rivers are being undermined all over New South Wales, and they're all losing water and they're getting polluted and contaminated. So at the moment, Rivers SOS, though, we got involved in the whole approvals process for coal mining and coal seam gas. And we're looking at corruption. And it's not just me saying this. There's a bloke who was head of the EPA in Perth in Western Australia. He was also head of the EPA in New Zealand at one stage. And he has said that corruption exists in the approval process, not just in Western Australia, but in every state. And he even mentioned specifically that people have to pay bureaucrats to actually read their 1,000-page boring applications. And, you know, if that's true, it's really bad. I mean, but his accusations, which have been published, I have the articles if anyone wants to follow it up with me. I have the articles where he says these things. It was published in a Perth paper. But no one seems to follow these things up. But of course, over here you've had the Obaid scandal, haven't you? And in fact, when we were at Jerry's Plains last Saturday, we had a guy called Craig Shaw, who lives in the Bylong Valley, right near Eddie Obaid's property, Cherrydale. And he has been attending the ICAC hearings every day. So he gave us a marvellous rundown and sort of tried to link up all the characters and how they're connected and what's happening. And I mean, I think it's just the tip of the iceberg. I think that corruption's entrenched in the bureaucracy as well as the ministries and the politicians. And so, I mean, I think a lot more will probably come out simply because there's so much damn money floating around. How could you resist being a little bit corrupt if you have a huge mortgage and you're getting a divorce? You know, it would be so very tempting. It would be hard to keep your fingers out of the till, and especially because, I mean, there simply aren't enough public servants to do the jobs in these agencies either. And the agencies are all overlapping, EPA, New South Wales Office of Water, and Mineral Resources, and they all pass the buck, and there are too few of them, and there are not enough of them to do the work. But the Sydney Catchment Authority, now I'm not saying that's corrupt, but I will note that there was a bloke called, I'm sorry I'm a bit out of breath, I've got a bit of a cold. There's a bloke called Michael Bullen who was head of the Sydney Catchment Authority. And I went to a public meeting he held was being held at Helensburgh, and it was quite a big meeting, not as big as this, but there were a lot of people there, and he actually said, to our delight, that he was going to prevent Apex, the coal seam gas company, from having any access into Sydney Catchment Authority's land, into the special areas where they want to mine or want to extract coal seam gas. And we were thrilled. This was finally the Sydney Catchment Authority is going to stand up and do what they're meant to do and protect the damn catchments. But next thing, he's gone. He's actually been kicked upstairs to a better job. But you don't hear any more mention that they're going to deny access. And unfortunately, the Sydney Catchment Authority was set up in 1998. And probably some of you are old enough to remember, but there was a health scare, Cryptosporidium giardia, germs in the water, blah, blah, blah. and hundreds of people had died over in Milwaukee in the USA a few years before because of similar problems. So there was panic, and there was the McClellan inquiry. He's now running the child abuse inquiry, which is good, because I think he's great. But the McClellan inquiry came up with the Sydney Catchment Management Act, which set up the Sydney Catchment Authority and split it away from Sydney Water. So you've got Sydney Catchment supplying the bulk water to Sydney Water, which sells it on to us. And so the Sydney Catchment Authority was set up from the very start. McClellan wasn't happy that there wasn't the legislative power vested in the Sydney Catchment Authority through that Act to allow them to prevent bad things happening in the catchment. So you've got this extraordinary parallel universe, it's sort of la-la land, where you have the Sydney Catchment Authority saying we're here to protect the catchments from coal mining and from any bad effects, any bad impacts, not specifically coal mining, even rubbish. But that's what they're there for, to protect the integrity of our water supply and make sure that water is filtered through pure bushland into the storage dams. And they just haven't got the power to do it. But they keep pretending they have. So in all their publications, you see pristine bushland, you see rangers looking out over the horizon, guarding the catchments. You see birds and bees, and you see all this beautiful prose about how the catchments have to be protected, their integrity and the biodiversity is so important. And yet, there are at least 5 mines going hell for leather in the special areas that are the most pristine, heartland, sacrosanct parts of our catchment system. They're going hell for leather, and now they're allowing probably coal seam gas. So, and that's going to be just as bad. And I could read to you quotes, but I won't, you'll be bored, about how dreadful the mining impacts are in the catchment. The senior hydrologist who works for the Sydney Catchment Authority is called Dr. Jerzy Jankowski. And he's written since 2007, he's been writing most alarming papers about how terrible the effects are from longwall mining on the water sources, on both water quality and quantity. And he spells out in detail the chemicals that are attacking the water and the dreadful things that are happening and how much water is being lost. No one takes the slightest notice. No one cares. It's incredible. They go on and on approving longwall mining in the catchments and now, as I say, coal seam gas. So I've also joined Lock the Gate, and I'm totally in favour. Lock the Gate and Jess has just been calling for a Royal Commission into the whole approvals process. And especially I think there should be a focus on what's happening in our catchments, because it's really shocking. And it affects, 4.5 million people? Not only Greater Sydney, but the Illawarra and the Blue Mountains and the Southern Highlands. We all get our water from these special areas of Sydney's catchment and from the big storage dams and the rivers that flow into them that should be protected. And I can't believe that the whole thing was set up in 1998 to protect the catchments, and we're just frittering it away. And I think what's wrong with us as a society, that we can't put a stop to this. It's just insane. And I could go on for another half hour about the water desal plant and how that's a bit ineffective, but I'll spare you that. I'll do it next time.